Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us once again. It's so great to see all of your smiling faces and silhouettes. Chelsea and I are here, as you know, as the co-founders of Nova Impact. We also have day jobs. I work at an investment firm called Falcon Ventures, and she runs her family's foundation called the Keep Families Giving Foundation, where I serve as an advisor. So we are super excited to begin this next conversation focused on women in the investment space and how women can really leverage the power of investment to support some of the values that we care so much about. So with that, I'll introduce our speakers. We have C.S. Freeland, we have Sheena Paul, Acacia Erhardt, and Nike Anani. We would love to have you come out and speak and sit.
So we're going to get started, but I think if each of you could share just a little bit about your background and how you came into the impact space. And for those of us that joined the last panel, those young women were more focused on building communities, and this group of next-gen women are looking at different ways to be in the philanthropic space or investors. But Olivia and I, we want to change a little bit of what is usually expected of the word investor. We hope that it becomes a word that means community, that means collaborative, that means accessible. So with that frame of reference in mind from the Nova team, we'd love if each of you would share a little bit about what you're up to, what you're excited about, and your background.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anani. I am co-founder of African Family Firms. We are a non-profit community of business owners seeking to build legacy enterprises across the continent, African continent, that is. So we're family businesses, family offices, family foundations. How did I get into this space? I went to university in the UK, started my career in accountancy. And then after I realized that it was incredibly boring and I would be watching paint dry for the rest of my career, I decided to move back to Lagos in Nigeria, which is where I'm from. And my father had started a family business the year I was born. So came back at age 24, got very entrenched in the business, ran the family office. So I founded the family office and I ran it for 10 years. So I very much have on the ground, hands-on experience in terms of investing. And I guess my first-hand experience as a business owner, as a successor on the continent, it opened my eyes to the fact that there was just no support in terms of trying to build a business that would outlive my father or even outlive myself. And I became super passionate about that and established my nonprofit with my dear friend, Sissy Mutendi. And that's the origin and, of African Family Firms. So today I split my time between African Family Firms, which is the philanthropic activity, a lot of advocacy, a lot of education, community building of business owners across the continent and in the diaspora, as well as my family office. I'm no longer the CEO, but I'm on the board. So myself and my brothers, we invest together, predominantly tech. Impact, as most people that are my demographic, impact is really key to us, really passionate about people, planet, and community.
I'm Acacia Erhardt. I'm a born and raised Texan, and I started my career in investing at Falcon Ventures. Shout out. And Falcon, when I first started, was just focused on solving global challenges. So coming out of college, that was something really appealing to me as somebody who's really smart but thinks the world is kind of, bleeped. And I wanted to figure out, how do we get those two things together, right? Like the money and the good. Investing was kind of an interesting first job because you're starting sort of at the top of the cap stack. And let's just say the apex predator of energy and resources, because we send it all the way down. And I would say as I've started spreading to other projects, my last day at Falcon was last month. So I'm transitioning into an operator role at a company called Carbon Cure, which mineralizes CO2 into concrete. So it's permanent carbon sequestration forever, right? And 8% of global emissions come from concrete. So really fighting directly instead of sort of asset allocating. And I joke that it's kind of as far as my next chapter, I can't stop investing. So I'm working with Era VC, which is based out of New York, on their Web3 region fund. So if you guys know any Web3 operators who really care about the environment and want to sort of direct that energy into sustainability, hit me up. I'm your contact. And yeah, I'm excited to sort of, answer questions, talk about what I'm up to, and give advice or, not. So, yeah.
So my name is Sheena Paul. I am the Chief Operating Officer and Head of Legal Strategy for World Class Holdings. We're a real estate development company based here in Austin. We started about 2007. I'm also a member partner at a VC out of New York called HL Ventures, and we there focus on companies that are looking for profits with a purpose. So like Nike, I started a little bit more of a traditional background. I went to college here at UT Austin. I studied Plan 2, which some of you might be familiar with. It's sort of an interesting and quirky little college education where they teach you a little bit about a lot and leave you thinking that you got to do something about this planet that we're living on. And then I was also in the business school in which they instilled, or at least it felt like to me, that you needed to end up on Wall Street if you were going to make a difference. And so I sort of grew up as a young adult with those two things, those two pulls. So I saw in the world a lot of things that needed addressing, and then I saw what business could do. And so that's where my interest in pairing both business with typically philanthropic objectives and seeing what could happen. And so basically my career, I have followed both of those two things. So followed business passions, and then also how do we make the people on this planet or the planet a better place. And, one of my favorite pieces of advice I've ever been given was from one of my law school professors who said, Sheena, life, God willing, is long, and you don't have to do everything at once. And I think she's right, except I think that you can also do a little bit of a lot of things all at the same time, but just not everything at 100%. And in talking with Olivia and Chelsea about today, they wanted to have a conversation about how, you can be involved in a lot of different things to achieve a bigger objective. And I think that's really what my career has been about. So I would say I'm a jack of all trades and a master of only a few. And so it's been a fun way to develop a career, and I'm excited to tell you guys more about that.
Oh, yeah, that super resounds with me, too. I'm just kind of like exploring life, and I think that's really great.
Just living life.
Yeah, I'm just living. I don't know. So hi, everyone. My name is C.S. Freeland, and I'm a co-founder and the executive director for the Austin Venture Association. We have experienced such an explosion of growth, obviously, in town, and I think this is something that we've always kind of wanted, to have a strong startup and entrepreneur ecosystem. And it's really getting what I'm calling the greater investor community together. So not just VCs, but accelerators, incubators, family office has been way more interested in startups than they've ever been. And I think it's just a really important moment in time where entrepreneurs are building solutions to challenges that we've already experienced. We need these solutions like yesterday. So, a little bit about me is I spent 7 years at a tech venture studio called PowerShift Group, and I helped with the go-to-market launch plans for our portfolio companies, just a small handful of seasoned tech entrepreneurs, really like lifetime entrepreneurs. So you kind of like catch the bug, I guess. And that's I'll just stick with that. There's a lot going on.
I think I'm going to turn it to Liv to kind of handle this next question. But before I do that, I think something that Olivia and I are both really passionate about with Nova that I hope you see on this stage is the importance of women in diversity and the importance of local and global, right? So take care of your home. Austin is the home to Olivia and I. It's where we grew up. It's what we're passionate about, but understand that there's global challenges and we can't not address them.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. And to even piggyback on top of that is, not only is this group global and local, but they're also kind of redefining what it means to be an investor and what it means to make really smart investment decisions that create change in the world. So one of the experiences that Chelsea and I both had growing up was kind of seeing the men in our lives and our families and in the world making investment decisions and not understanding what that meant while still having exposure to kind of what was happening on the philanthropic side. So we see a lot of women being brought into the philanthropy side saying, hey, you can help make this grant. It's going to be great. The returns are X, Y, and Z, but don't really worry about the financials. Don't really worry about kind of the specifics of what it means to actually be sustainable and to have something that can have recurring revenue. So, I think we're so excited to have this group together because these people are really redefining what it means to apply the values that we care so much about into the investment space. And it sounds like everybody here kind of came into that role from a different perspective. Acacia, you've been working in venture since you were 18?
Yes.
Thanks. And, have really grown up in the venture space and even meeting you for me, completely redefined how you diligence a company, how you understand the viability of a solution, and you've been a massive mentor to me. So
Can I jump in?
Oh, please.
I have an agenda here. Yes, started venture when I was 18. I just followed Kyle Bellardo around for 2 years while I was in college, and something that I'm really grateful to him was that he would just keep me in tow. It was never, well, this is a little bit too big girl for you, and why don't you just sit this one out? It was always like, what do you think? And I didn't really start sounding smart until I was like outside of college and ready to start, picking deals of my own. What I'll say is, I think women are missing a huge wave in venture specifically, but not necessarily just venture, of just the wealth building that's going to come from two things. The non-government version of Green New Deal is happening right now, not just in venture, right? It's not just, can we get cold fusion, right? It's project finance. So being invested on the real estate side, on the project side even, having exposure to this huge wealth creation. Okay, what's the second one? I hate to plug it because you guys hear about it all the time. Web3, blockchain, whatever you want to call it. I don't care if you think it's legit. It's where the talent is coming from. Like, all of the interested developer talent is flocking. They're learning Solidity. They're learning, how to interact with Bitcoin and build on top of it. So I like to follow where smart people are going because it's just an easy way. Those are the two things I want to plug. And it doesn't matter how you get involved, but just show up and, figure out a way to participate in this is the roaring 20s, right? We got to figure out how do we get a piece of it and not just replicate and compound that loss that women have by not even being in the room and not having shareholdership. So agenda, this is what I came to say, so I'll be quiet.
Agenda complete. No, I mean, one of the things that you're touching on is kind of how you've been able to look around the room, look around your community, see what people are excited about, and to go with that instead of saying, these are the principles that I learned in a textbook that was written in 1950. This is how I'm going to apply it. You actually have the ability to take those principles, have them be the foundation of the work that you do, but to look around the room, see who's doing what, understand what's happening in the actual world, and then build upon that. And so, I think that's kind of a unique, and this is controversial, but that's kind of a uniquely feminine skill, right? Like, when we think of what an investor is, never in my life would I have considered that being an investor actually meant being a community builder, meant being a good listener, meant being a good narrator or storyteller. And so I think, you're certainly exercising that. All the women on this panel are certainly exercising that. And I would love to kind of hear from either Sheena or Nike or CS kind of how you've implemented those principles into your own life.
I'm happy to take that. First, can I get a little show in the room of how many of you are currently investors in anything, or own your own business? Okay, and how many of you either came here today because you want to, or sorry, this is very bright, so just trying to see, you want to be in that space? Okay, great. A lot of active folks here. Okay, good. We wanted to get a sense of who all was in the room too. I wholeheartedly agree with Acacia in a lot of ways, but in particular, this concept of, putting yourself in the ring. And so similar to you, at a very young age, I think, basically my first internship at age 18, I just attached myself to the person that I saw doing the coolest stuff and showed up every day early and just followed him around, basically. And what's amazing about, really, this applies to life just in general, right? Showing up is probably 90% of it. Sticking around is the other 10% and not leaving. And so if I look at my career and just by way of background, so before I was an entrepreneur, I worked for a lot of different types of organizations, private equity firms, venture capital firms, Procter & Gamble, a huge Wall Street law firm. I wanted to get a sense of how these organizations run and how they work. But in each of those iterations, I found a person or persons who would let me do, and I don't say this in a pejorative way, but the big girl stuff. It's like, even if I just got here, I don't know anything about what I'm doing. Turns out neither do 90% of the people around me. So who's to say that I'm any less qualified than they are to have these opportunities? So I think a lot of, achieving your goals, or whether that's in your particular business or in your life, starts there. Is that turns out most of us are just walking around not knowing what the heck we're doing. And it's those of us who try to figure it out that get where we're trying to go.
Completely. Nike, I know you spoke a little bit about that in terms of kind of forging the way for what it meant to be a family office on the African continent. Can you share a little about your experience?
Yeah, I think really resonate with what you both are saying. I started off as an accountant, like I said, and then moved back to Nigeria. My dad had been doing a lot of venture investing, PE investing, just investing. And I mean, I was just following him around, just learning what he was doing. And we made mistakes, plenty of mistakes, but we also did some good deals. And what I spotted was that the deals that we were strongest was where we co-invested with folks that knew what the F they were doing, right? That were seasoned kind of finance professionals and like understood due diligence and were technical operators. And we just were like, do you think it's a good deal? And if they said yes, and they invested, like, yeah, we'll do that too. And just thinking through what you were talking about, redefining what being an investor looks like. Now that we've moved the decision-making away from my father to myself and my brothers, I take on the role of building relationships. Just going out there to find other people that we can learn from, get access to their deal flow, just pick their brains. Okay, this W3 thing, this blockchain thing, what do you think? Just having smart people around you is super helpful. And I think as women, we're so relational and we're really, really good at building authentic relationships. It's so instinctive to us. Obviously, caveats, we're not all the same, and women and men, there'll always be outliers, right? But I think we can harness that to our advantage when it comes to investing.
Absolutely. And that's what we're hoping to do at Nova Impact as well. So we're glad to have you here. CS, do you want to talk about the role of ABA?
Yeah, well, look, y'all, I run a local investors club. I've never invested in my life. How's that? I'm way more of a builder. I'm a founder. I'm an entrepreneur. Even if you have no money, I have money, okay, but I don't have like buku's money. Money is out there and you can move it. You can like manifest it. There's tons of money. There's tons of resources. You just have to feel it. You have to connect with people. You can move money around like nothing, like serious money. And that's such a big deal for founders too. Like that's one of the number one things that they need. So building this community, organizing local investors, is something that, I've founded companies out of the studio before, and I was like, I don't know if I'll ever go raise money off this, especially like as a woman, you have more of an uphill battle. I'm like, oh God, is it even worth it? That's horrible. When you think to yourself, like, oh, I'm just not gonna, like, what's the point? That's horrible. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I started this club, because I was like, well, we really need to get people together, and you can have people focus on, a short list of things that are really, really important, and focus on getting a lot of diverse individuals in the room. Like women, people of color, diversity, and we need more operator investors, people who have started companies before and have exited. A lot of diversity in geography too now. So a lot of people coming from East, West Coast, they love the Austin culture. They're going to come here for a reason, and they'll stay here for a reason. So we're just very lucky to be doing something like this right now. But my point is, it doesn't matter if I think it's a really big deal to be following someone around too, but it's important to make sure that you're resourceful, but you can also create something out of nothing. So that's not even an excuse too.
I think CS makes a really good point, and I think it's represented in terms of this room and what a lot of us believe in, and I know what Olivia and I are working on too, and that is, the example I'll give is we hosted a panel. It was virtual at the time because we were all in Zoom, to Acacia's point, Zoom bleep, of the global pandemic. And Mickey Argowal talked about like the company that she did, but more importantly, how that in that experience, she went through the fundraise and exited the company or did really well, but then she was going to put that money right back into women founders. And I think sometimes we tend to silo nonprofits or startups over here and investors and family offices over here. But what I see is, look what happens when Nova meets Fyli, meets James Lane Post, meets all of these women, right? This is how we change the world. This is how we move forward. We need to listen to one another and be partners in that process. And I'm super proud of being partners with these women.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Snaps for all of them. Snaps for all of them. No, I mean, these women are exemplary of how you can kind of leverage the power of community to make better investment decisions, like you were saying, Nike. Acacia, following people around, seeing what they're doing, just kind of being a sponge to understand what's happening in the investment space. It's incredible to have mentors who will allow you to do that, because not everybody does. And then, Sheena kind of echoing on top of that as well, just being in the room, showing up, being there as 90%, like you said, and then staying there for the other 10%. And then, I think one thing that you didn't touch on that much of is that, you're an absolute killer in the real estate space, but with the success that you've had, you've actually transformed that into a very, very comprehensive investment portfolio, right? So not only are you working in the real estate space, but you're consulting for other firms. You're a partner at a firm, an actual manager at a firm. And, it's pretty incredible to see a woman step into the role of finding success in real estate and then transforming that into something else completely. Do you want to speak a little to kind of what you're doing there and what's been inspiring for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So just by way of additional background, so I've been building with my brother our real estate company for we started in 2007. So it's been a lot of hard work, put our head down. We're now the largest owner of private land in downtown Austin. We own assets in 17 states and 33 cities. It's become a really big business over the last 10 years. But as I mentioned, my passion area has always been, using business solutions to solve social problems, both at a local level and at a global level. And so throughout my career, even though at times it was, 80% was on the real estate business, or 90%, or sometimes 120%, I never lost sight of, this is my real objective. This is why I believe I was put on this earth, is to champion the cause that you can make a huge difference with business solutions. And I'm just super excited about that, because I think the first time that became really clear to me was when I started to look at, when the value of a company is X-fold over the GDP of a nation. Like, what does that mean, and how can we ignore that? So to Olivia's point, in that vein, even while I was busy on our real estate business, and as CS was saying, trying to build up the resources necessary to do some of the other things I wanted to do in my life, I never lost sight of that other interest area. And so at times it looked like being on the board of a nonprofit or just being a volunteer at a nonprofit. And at other times it was judging startup competitions, even if it wasn't, I wasn't doing things outside of real estate at that time, but keeping my brain fresh and keeping, those ideas in my head. And then eventually, about 3 years ago, I started working with this venture capital firm. And it's always, there's never enough time. And at the same time, there's always enough time. It's just like how much, how are you going to spend your time? And, I decided about 3 years ago, okay, I've spent a lot of time building and running this business, but I need to really start to focus myself on what I'm most passionate about. And the way that I was able to do it was literally just by making that decision. So committing myself to things that would make sure that my life was going in that direction. And so now I spend a lot of my time on sourcing, diligencing, and investing in companies that are making that kind of an impact that I was talking about. And then something I'm most excited about is talking to other women about doing the same thing and encouraging them. And, it just starts with a conversation. So that doesn't mean, sitting on a panel. Sometimes it's in a coffee shop or at a party or at a dinner or, wherever, at the gym, And one thing that's been really fun in my agenda, if I'll have one for today, is I do think, it's never been a more exciting time to live in Austin, Texas, or to be a part of Austin, Texas. It is just, in my opinion, and I've lived in New York City the last 10 years. And so I was one of those Texans who said I'd go to New York for 2 years and then come back like every good Texan. 10 years later, I was still there. The pandemic brought me back, but I'm so thankful that it did, because right now you can walk out of your door and meet the most interesting person. You can have an idea you've never had. You can have a conversation you've never had. We're coming out of this really unusual time in human history where people are craving connection. And as you guys were saying, women have a superpower, and that's the ability to relate to other people. And that's a superpower that helps you advance your goals. It's a superpower in business, and one that I think that gets underplayed a lot. And so, I guess I wandered a little bit in answering your question, but I guess my agenda here is just to say that, be aware that you're in one of the most exciting cities, I think, on the planet right now, where people are here, they're coming here in droves to get things done. And they're so generous with making introductions and, helping each other. And we've got great organizations like Nova and Fyli who are also there to add an additional backbone. So yeah, I don't know. I guess in my story, it was just not losing sight of what it was I was excited about and looking for that green light every time that one opened up and following it.
And look, it's not like Austin everywhere else in the world right now, obviously. So super grateful for that too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're coming up on time, but just to go through, can we hear kind of how we as a community can be supportive of your goals, what the best use of our time in helping you is, and then how we can continue to stay engaged with you and your work. Nike, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think following on from what you said, Sheena, I moved all the way from Lagos, Nigeria to Austin, Texas back in July, and 1000% agree with you. This is a really exciting city to be in. And just being connected to folks with similar... Can't you hear me? Okay, no problem. Being connected to folks with similar interests and vision and values in terms of mobilizing capital to being a force for good, having access to people that I genuinely want to spend my time with and be interested in going for a coffee with and having dinner with, and we may end up co-investing or we may end up doing philanthropy together. That advances my goals. I'm super relational, as you can probably tell. And I don't do business or invest or philanthropy with people that I just would not enjoy their company. And that, for me, has been my superpower.
That's fair. I like that. All right. Advancing my goals. What I would say is advance your own goals, and I'll see you at the top. But in the meantime, no, I mean this sincerely. In the meantime,
no
really,
help.
put your money down. Put it down. It doesn't have to be a lot. I always say, it's like the slots. I get $20, and I hit the penny slots until I'm done. I was like, oh, that was fun. That's a bit how venture investing is, because it's a spray and pray. It's the law of exponents. I can wax philosophical all day long, but essentially, if you have a targeted investment strategy in venture, either you are, you have access to amazing information, or you're a fool. Just go, put some here, put some there. If you are interested in venture, and if you're not, that's another amazing thing to know about yourself, and go find the risk profile that works for you and make a bet there. I think women are wonderful investors because they can see risks that just for a while has been ignored or not capitalized on. Certain things that might appear risky to some don't appear risky to others, right? It's all about that diversity of perspective, not just like Sheryl Sandberg lean in. It's also about sort of, okay, well, how am I different from you guys? What's my competitive advantage? It doesn't always have to be I'm one of the guys or I fit in just really well in the firm. It's about sort of bringing in that new perspective. So please invest some amount of, it's not just money, but in this case, I think, It's 10 grand, go join a REIT, right? And just get invested. I mean, so you start reading those P&Ls, you start understanding. And so people start understanding that you want to be involved and they tailor those offerings to you. I mean, I can't say it enough. Like, just get in there. Like, really. Okay, thanks.
And talk to other people who are willing to share what their experience investing has looked like as well, so that you can kind of have training wheels.
Yes. So my ask was going to be similar to what you just said, which is so in terms of, what would advance my agenda the most is to see more and more women in the room and in those conversations. And so what I would ask you guys to do is take the opportunity, be mindful, maybe once a week, just ask a question about business or about a different industry to anyone. It doesn't really matter. It could be in a coffee line, like, hey, what are you working on? I would love to see our world continue to develop in a way where it's normal and it's not unusual and it's not, notable that women are in the room having investment conversations. I'll give you a little personal example, which is that since I've been here and been so lucky to find an incredible tribe of amazing women kind of across the industry sectors, but we decided to put together, a once a month brunch where we just come and talk about things that we've heard, different businesses, different industries, different trends. And it seems so obvious because we're all doing that in our professional lives, but we're not often taking the occasion as women to get together for that purpose. And I just think it's really exciting. It's a super easy thing to do. And as you said, that creates a groundswell where enough people do that over enough time that it becomes normal to see that and do it. And I think that's when we're really going to see some incredible things happen in the investment space, but on our planet too.
Yeah, I second the coffee shop conversations and just like, hi, hello. One of my founding board directors, she and I met, I think it was the last coffee meeting that I had right before the pandemic. And now it's a little bit surreal because I think that we'll have the largest variety and diverse group of the greater venture investors here in town. Really, she helped me co-found this, and it's just like we're gonna have this really great party on Saturday. It's like she was my last coffee meeting before the world turned. But I guess how y'all can help is it's still the founding very early days of the Austin Venture Association, and we're a 501c3. And we put together resources like the Venture Directory, which has it's shocking. You won't believe me, but if you just go to our Venture Directory, there's over 150 organizations. That's like 60 venture capital firms that have an office. There's 40 or so remote VCs, incubators, accelerators, family office. We even included some growth equity and private equity that do Series B on up and all of that, some venture debt. So you would be helping to pay my salary too, because I'm the only person that's full-time on this, more than full-time now. So we're doing founding sponsorships that you could be on the advisory board, and there's a lot of really cool things that we can do to help really redefine the future of venture starting here in Austin. So go to our website, austinventureassociation.org.
So I think we're going to close out this portion of our panel, but I hope you can see what Olivia and I have hoped to build, and I think we've done a pretty good job, is this community aspect and collaboration and a platform for a variety of people from a variety of spaces to say why they're dedicating both their personal but professional lives to impact. So thank you to our panelists.
Thank you so much.